If you don't finish reading this, everyone you know will die. By Platt and David Wright. If you're reading this, then Erica and Dr. Halprin were wrong. Oh, and one other thing. Once you start reading this, you must finish. If you don't, everyone you know will die. 7, 7, 7, 7. Don't ask me why or how. Rules are rules. I don't make them up. I just abide by them. Always. Thursday, March 8th. 8:14 a.m. Today, Dr. Halprin will cure me. At least that's what my girlfriend Erica claims. Forgive me if I'm skeptical, but I've never heard of anyone being cured of OCD. Supposedly, this guy is good. She saw him interviewed on a local morning show or something. He'd helped a man who hadn't left his house in over a year. I'm not quite that bad, so maybe there's hope. I hope. In case you're one of the few people who haven't heard of OCD, it stands for obsessive-compulsive disorder, a mental disorder which plagues the afflicted with unwanted obsessive thoughts and compulsive actions. While scientists are divided on the causes and symptoms vary greatly, here's how I describe my symptoms to people who don't know what OCD is. Imagine I told you not to think of an elephant or you'll die tonight. 7. I can guarantee you one thing, you're going to think of an elephant, whether you believe the part about dying or not. 7. While most people can simply forget about the elephant and the threat that thinking of it may or may not pose, people with OCD cannot. Not easily, anyway. The constant thought, or loop as I call it, is the O in OCD, the obsessive thought that won't go away. A person with OCD must engage in a compulsion to neutralize the obsessive thoughts. That's the C, compulsion. The compulsion can be mental, physical, or both. In either case, it's like an itch that must be scratched. A mental form might be counting to 10 repeatedly in your head until the danger goes away. Physical compulsions can include such things as touching a wall, blinking, hand washing, cleaning, or some completely unrelated action to the actual threat, such as writing the number 7 over and over. OCD is like superstition on steroids. Remember that grade school rhyme, step on a crack, break your mama's back? For a child with OCD, that isn't just a rhyme. It's a dire threat. And even though we know that the cause and effect are impossible to link, we avoid stepping on cracks well into adulthood, just in case. That, my friend, is OCD in a nutshell. While I've been afflicted with OCD for as long as I can remember, long before I even knew what it was, it's gone from minor annoyance to life-crippling in the last year. What had been a minor annoyance spiraled out of control after I received a chain letter in the mail. For someone with OCD, a chain letter is like a curse, plaguing your mind until you fulfill the instructions in the letter. In my case, I had to send out 100 handwritten copies of the letter and send them to strangers around the country. Now, the OCD has gotten so bad that I can't leave my house without touching the doorknob 72 times. Yes, you read that right. 72 times. God forbid I get interrupted, lose count, or think I may have lost count. I have to start over. This is but one of many rituals, each of them with odd rules that come with them. Rules that make no sense, except that I know if I break them, something horrible will happen. Horrible thoughts run through my mind all day and night. What-ifs and predictions of bad things, ranging from the simple, like my cable will go out during a baseball game, to devastating, like an asteroid plummeting to the Earth and wiping out millions of people. My brain, at least I assume it's my brain and not some supernatural curse, conjures up something bad that will happen, and the only way for me to prevent it is to cancel out the thought. For instance, if I think you will be hit by a car, some part of me believes it will happen unless I then force myself to think, you will not be hit by a car. I call this unthinking, one of my regular compulsions, and I have to do it 7 times in order to cancel out the cursed thought. My other rituals include hand washing, blinking, counting, and never stopping on an odd-numbered page. If an article or book ends on an odd page, I go back and read the last even-numbered page thoroughly from top to bottom to scrub the stain of the last page from my mind. Fucking weird, right? Try maintaining a job or anything close to a normal social life while dealing with these compulsions. Fortunately, I'm a web designer, and I've been able to make a decent living without ever having a face-to-face with clients. And the worst part about these things, and the dozens of other rituals I've since stopped or graduated from, is that I know they're all bullshit. I know I don't have to do any of them. I don't have to cancel out a bad thought. Just because I think my cousin Sandy will die if I don't touch the doorknob, doesn't mean I have to touch the doorknob. 7. And just because I write that Sandy might die, doesn't mean I have to write the number 7 to cancel it out. Nothing bad will happen if I never surrender to the compulsion. I know this, and yet I can't stop. It's like an itch you try to ignore, but can't. It must be scratched, and I need help. So today I'm going to the doctor and hoping for the best. Wish me luck. Thursday, March 15th. 2:02 p.m. I've just come back from my second visit to Dr. Halprin. I'd meant to update this last week, after my first visit, but I was stuck in a vicious cycle of touching the doorknob when I returned home. Ironic that the day I went to a shrink to get better, I had one of my worst ever episodes of compulsive behavior. Today is a bit better. I'm on an antidepressant, prescribed by Dr. Halprin. I'm not sure if it's working yet, since the doc said it would likely take a few months to see results, or if it's a placebo effect, but I feel less anxious today. Tomorrow, the doc is bringing me in for some exposure and ritual avoidance therapy. The idea is to force me to do things I wouldn't normally do, such as touching a doorknob without my sleeve or shirt tail, while also avoiding the compulsions I use to cancel my bad actions. I've read that the combined methods have helped many OCD patients. Perhaps there is hope after all. I hope so. I don't know how long I can hide how bad things have gotten from Erica. I've been dating Erica for about 9 months. She's my first serious relationship in 6 years, but the closer we get, the more my fear that I'll lose her or something bad will happen to her overwhelms me. My OCD starts to flare. When we first met, I was doing well. My compulsions were minimal and almost entirely mental, counting, repeated phrases and such. Mental compulsions are the easiest to hide. Nobody, Erica included, ever picked up on what I was doing. At worst, they thought I was zoning out or not paying attention for a moment. They had no idea I was actually reciting an elaborate prayer I've been saying since age 7. Just one of many defenses I use to fight the bad thoughts. But as I'm engaged in more and more compulsive actions, it becomes harder and harder to keep this from her. Erica is the sweetest woman I've ever known. We met in a Barnes & Noble back when I still went out. I was in the cafe, drinking a coffee and reading a magazine, killing some time until the bus was due. I don't drive for fear of cars. When I saw her staring at me and writing something down. Girls don't usually come up to me. I'm average looking, not ugly. But I don't exactly look friendly, always off in my own internal world. Anyway, there she was, with long dark hair, horn-rimmed glasses, and beautiful blue eyes, staring at me. It took her a moment to realize I'd noticed her staring at me. She smiled, then held up the sketch to show me what she was doing. I was surprised she chose me as a subject and went over to get a closer look. The drawing was great. She apologized and said when she saw me, she felt compelled to sketch me. She explained that she's a big people watcher, and there was something unique about me. Normally, I would take that as an insult. The way she said it, with her quirky sideways smile, made it sound like a compliment. "What's your name?" she asked. "Anthony," I said. "Erica," she offered her hand. I shook it. Normally I avoid handshakes at all costs, even from beautiful women. I'm also a giant germaphobe, I know, big shock. But there was something different about her. I shook her hand without apprehension, and no desire to reach for my Purell. Hell, I almost didn't care if she had 15 different diseases. I'd be willing to catch each and every one. My feelings were as weird as they were instant. I was shocked when Erica agreed to meet me for dinner a few nights later. Soon, we were dating, and things were getting serious. Lately, she's been hinting at us moving in together, either her apartment or mine. While my place is bigger, hers is closer to her office, where she works as a graphic designer for a small local music and culture magazine. But we can't live together. I can't let her see how bad my OCD truly is, and there wouldn't be any way to hide it if we lived together. I've told her about my OCD, but lied about how bad it was, saying the worst of it was when I was younger. She was fascinated at first, asked me all kinds of questions. It was liberating to share these things that I've hidden for so long, even if I was still hiding the worst inside. Best of all, she wasn't scared off, didn't think I was a freak. Then again, she hadn't seen the worst of it. The facial contortions, walking backwards through doors, the blinking fits, or any of the other weird shit that started in middle school. Things I couldn't help back then, drawing the laughter and taunts of my classmates. The kids had all kinds of names for me in school. Freak, retard, spaz. You don't forget shit like that. As accepting as Erica has been, she hasn't seen the worst of it. The idea of her seeing me in full freak mode terrifies me. No way someone could accept that part of me. So I have to get it under control before she realizes how bad it really is. The closer I get to her, the harder it is. I hope this treatment works. Friday, March 16th. I did it. I touched the elevator button with my fingers. Dr. Halprin brought me downstairs to the lobby of the medical plaza and told me to touch the button. No shirt sleeve, no tissue, just skin. I pressed the button, and two thoughts went through my mind at once. First, I thought of all the germs and was certain I'd come down with a cold within days, if not hours. Next, I had a prediction. That a woman in red who got on the elevator would die in a car crash if I didn't unthink the thought. 7. Unthinking. A thought is another compulsion. Say, for example, that I thought the woman would die in a car accident. 7. I then have to unthink it, saying she will not die in an accident. 7. And I have to do this 7 times, and quickly. If I'm interrupted, the event I predicted will happen. Though I have no evidence to suggest that it would actually happen, these are the irrational rules my brain has constructed, and which I've been going by for years. And though I know it's crazy that she wouldn't really die, I can't take a chance. 7. So after I touched the button, Dr. Halprin noticed that I was quiet. He asked what I was thinking, interrupting my unthinking. I told him the truth. He said, "Don't unthink it. Let the feeling go. See it as the irrational thought it is and just let it go." I tried to stop the unthinking, but couldn't. He saw that I was struggling and said, "It's okay. We'll get there in time. Let's concentrate on the physical stuff first." Erica is out of town visiting her family in Vermont for 2 weeks. She invited me to go, but I told her I was swamped with work, partly true. I'd love to have some success before she gets back. She's been dying to go to Francisco's, a restaurant all her friends have been raving about. I'm not good at restaurants, particularly if they're new or unfamiliar. So many people. So many germs, not even counting the food. I wasn't this bad when we first started dating, but it's been at least 3 months since we've gone out to eat. I've always told her I was too busy or unable to make a reservation, steering her towards one of the safe restaurants nearby, places I was less weirded out by, where I could enter without my fears getting the better of me. I think she's starting to suspect why we haven't gone to Francisco's. If she starts pulling that thread, the whole thing will come undone. I have to get better. Tuesday, March 20th. 8:20 p.m. Today I had a setback. The day started out okay. I actually left the house without needing to repeatedly touch the doorknob. That may not sound like much, but it's a load off my mind, and shaved about 20 minutes from leaving the house. Dr. Halprin and I did the elevator thing again. This time, we also rode the elevator, to address my fear of being in enclosed places with people and their germs. As each person got on the elevator, I said, "What floor?" I then pressed each floor's button as requested. I was doing pretty well. But then Dr. Halprin asked me to do some homework. I told him one of my goals was to go to Francisco's with Erica. He suggested that I go there on my own first, to get over my initial fears and to find a comfortable place to sit with her. Like dipping my toes into a pool instead of diving right in. So, I went at dinner time, figuring I may as well get the full experience of the restaurant's rush hour. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a wait, so I stood outside with a group of 20 or so people. I don't smoke and can't stand the smell, so I waited away from the rest of the group at the edge of the parking lot. That's when I saw her, the woman in the green dress. She was walking in the parking lot, on her way from her car to one of the stores in the shopping plaza. A thought ran through my mind from nowhere. She's going to get hit by a car and die. 7. Immediately, instinctively, I tried to counter the thought. No, she's not going to be hit by a car and die. No, she's not going to be hit by a car and die. And then I thought of Dr. Halprin's advice. You know these thoughts are irrational. You know that nothing will happen. Challenge them. This is what I want you to do. The next time you think of something horrible and start to try to unthink it, stop. Just stop and think of something else. Anything else. Raspberries, ice cream, the Knicks, anything other than your current thoughts. Okay, you can do this, I thought. I stopped after the second phrase and turned my head, looking back at the restaurant. I noticed a couple with a baby carriage built for twins. I wondered whether the twins were boys or girls, and even tried to imagine what they might look like by looking at the parents. Brown hair, slim, pale-skinned. My mind was practically screaming. Unthink the car accident. She's going to die. 7. But I didn't. Instead, I turned my attention to a pair of young women in black jeans and t-shirts. I wondered if they worked in Francisco's, or if they just happened to be dressed like the hostess and waitstaff. I thought how nice the waitstaff looked, and how impressive what I saw of the restaurant was. Large, but intimate and dimly lit. Erica will love it. And then I heard the screech and thunk, followed by the screams. I spun around and saw a blue Corvette, several people staring in horror, and the woman in the green dress lying on the ground. There was a small pool of blood under her head. My heart was in my throat. Fear paralyzed me. The man in the car got out, his eyes wide and horrified. 2 men were on the ground beside the woman, looking down, gravely. Several people were on their cell phones, likely calling the police. I kept staring as the murmuring behind me grew louder. I walked away from Francisco's, into the parking lot, and toward the accident. At about 10 feet away, I stopped at the sight of her dead, open eyes staring directly at me. All I could think was, I did this. I began praying to God, begging for her life. I even repeated the word in my head 7 times. No, she's not going to be hit by a car and die. Then 7 more. I repeated the phrase exactly 70 times, but she didn't get up. I went home, shaking, unable to think straight. Could I have actually killed her? 7. Could my not giving into the compulsion force the accident to happen? As crazy as it sounds, and as unlikely, it sure the hell seems that way. I searched for Dr. Halprin's card where he'd written his cell phone number. He told me to call any time, day or night, if there was an emergency. I'm not sure if that's something he does with all his patients, or if he thought I posed a risk to myself or others. I had no intention of needing the number. I never would have guessed this would happen. I called and told him about the woman in the green dress. I killed her, I said, barely holding my tears inside. You didn't kill her, he said, calmly. It's a freak coincidence. That is all, Anthony. I didn't say anything. I know I should believe him, but I can't help what I felt. He told me to hold on, and then came back a few minutes later and asked if I could come to his office tomorrow at 9 a.m. I agreed. My mind has been racing the past few hours with horrible thoughts, imagining tragedies befalling pretty much everyone I know. Then I unthink each bad thing over and over again. I'm tired. I took one of the painkillers from my root canal 4 months ago, and am waiting for it to lull me to sleep. I hope I don't see the woman in green in my sleep. Her eyes are dead, just like she is. Wednesday, March 21st. 1:16 p.m. Dr. Halprin talked me down today. I asked if there was another medication to take. I'm feeling super anxious. He said we should give the current one more time. Jumping from medication to medication could do more harm than good. We went downstairs. He took me through the elevator routine again, since I admitted to him that I had trouble coming up to his office. I also told him I had to wake up at 6 a.m. because I knew I'd take forever to get out of the house. I was right. I touched the doorknob 777 times exactly before finding the courage to leave. I waited to call a cab until I was already downstairs, which meant I had to wait another 15 minutes, then wound up 10 minutes late for my 9 o'clock appointment. I want you to go back to the restaurant today, Dr. Halprin said. I told him no. I couldn't. He suggested that the longer I waited, the harder it would be to gather the courage. He said avoidance would only make the place more difficult to visit when it came time to go there with Erica. You give these things power, but the good news is that you can take it back, he said. When I still said no, he suggested we meet there for dinner. I was surprised that he made room for me this morning, but even more surprised that he'd take time from his personal time to work after hours, just so I could go into a restaurant. I wondered if this was something he'd charge me overtime for, but I didn't dare ask. Besides, I have a decent bit of money saved. Not having a social life for years means you keep more of your money. If I have to spend a bit more to get over this, it's not that big of a deal. I thanked him, and we agreed to meet at 6. 3:15 p.m. The weirdest thing just happened. The apartment I live in is on a busy intersection. There are apartments across from me, then further down the street, offices and storefronts. Without saying exactly where I live, let's just say it's a busy city that never sleeps. Sometimes I sit at my kitchen nook table and look down at the street below, people watching. I'm 12 floors up, far enough from the madness, but close enough to see it from a bird's eye view. It was raining outside. My eyes locked onto a guy in a grey suit running down the street, trying to catch the bus. He's going to slip and fall, and his briefcase is going to fly into the street and get run over by a truck. After that, a fat woman in red will help him up. It was a weird thought, but not particularly dangerous, so I resisted the urge to unthink it, then watched the man. My thought was so specific in detail that while one or two might be possible, not all three events would happen. Besides, I didn't even see a fat woman in red. I kept watching. The man slipped. His briefcase bounced from his hands and into the street where a truck crushed it beneath its tire. The briefcase flew back beneath the wheels where it was hit by a second car before traffic came to a screeching halt. The woman appeared from one of the vehicles and helped the man up. I couldn't believe my eyes. I stared, paralyzed, wondering if I'd become psychic or if my thoughts somehow caused the chain of events. Neither seems likely. I waited 20 minutes for my hands to stop shaking so I could write this down. Can I tell the doctor what happened? He'll only think I'm crazy. What if I have another thought at dinner? Should I unthink it or allow events to unfold and show him that I'm not crazy? If I'm not crazy, what am I? Midnight. I don't know where to begin. He didn't believe me. He pushed me. I swear, I didn't want to do it. We met for dinner, and again, waited in line. I kept my head down, trying not to notice anyone. If I noticed, then I might think something bad, and God knows what might happen. But Dr. Halprin forced me to step out of my comfort zone. He could tell what I was doing. I told him about the man chasing the bus who slipped, then was helped by the woman in red. He didn't say it, but he thinks I've lost my mind. Or maybe he thinks I'm faking for attention. He saw how I was avoiding looking at anyone. He told me to look around and to tell me what I saw, what I thought might happen next. I resisted, telling him I didn't want anyone else to get hurt. "Trust me," he said, "nobody will get hurt." He was smiling as he said it. the smile you give a confused child or an insane adult. His condescending smile pissed me off. "I'm not crazy." He told me to look around the parking lot. My eyes drifted to where the woman soaked the concrete with her blood. I saw a few people walking. A mum and her young son, a young couple, an elderly woman, and what looked to be her adult daughter, and a few others. I tried to avoid concentrating on any of them, scared that I might inflict a thought upon them. Even thinking about not thinking about it meant I was thinking about it. So as my eyes focused on the mom and her young son again, I forced myself to look up. That's when I saw the airplane, a small Cessna, preparing to land at the airport about 2 miles south of the restaurant. And then the thought came, the plane is going to crash. Panic must have flooded my face because the doc asked what I was thinking. He followed my eyes and saw the plane. I started chanting silently in my head. The plane is not going to crash. 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 "Anthony, you're doing it again, aren't you?" Dr. Halprin interrupted. He broke my string of 7. I had to start over. The plane is not going to crash. The plane is not going to crash. He must have realized what I was doing because he broke in, again, saying, "Stop it, Anthony. Nothing's going to happen." I shook my head, then snapped at him. "Stop interrupting me. I need to finish." "The plane is not going to crash. The plane is not going to crash." He put a hand on my shoulder, breaking the string of 7 again, now touching me. I can't unthink thoughts if someone is touching me. Those are the rules. So I pulled away and tried to unthink the crash again. He shook me, saying, "Stop it! Nothing will happen." His volume was jolting and drew the attention from others in line. Everyone stared at us, and then they were staring and pointing at the sky. The plane was plummeting fast in an out-of-control nosedive, smoke pouring from the rear of the plane. "The plane is not going to crash. The plane is not going to crash. The plane is not going to crash," I started thinking. But Dr. Halprin touched me again. He wasn't trying to stop me. He was asking me, "How? How could you know?" I tried to shake him away, but it was too late. The plane vanished beneath the tree line, then exploded. Dr. Halprin backed away from me, his eyes wide and head shaking, as if logic and fear were at war inside his head. Fear was winning. So I ran. I kept running, even as the doc called after me. I ran across the parking lot and kept running, not stopping until I got home. The doc has called my house repeatedly, but I've not answered. I closed the door, drew the curtains, and have been sitting in the darkness. The phone stopped ringing around 8:30. A half-hour later, it rang again. This time it was Erica. Another thought flooded my brain. She's going to die of cancer. 7. I spent the next 2 hours unthinking the curse. Each time I unthought it, a voice in my head would counter, starting the loop all over again. She's not going to die of cancer. 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 Yes, she is. 7. And on, until I was finally exhausted and able to think of something else. Of course, now that I just wrote it, the thoughts are coming again. 7. I have to go. Sunday, March 25th. 2:10 p.m. I've been avoiding Erica since she got home. She called, even came over and knocked at the door. I pretended not to be home. I'm glad she doesn't have a key. My place is a disaster. I haven't cleaned since she left. Dishes are piled in the sink and overflowing to the counter. There are empty soda cans and beer bottles everywhere. The entire apartment stinks of spoiled food, sour beer, and dirty clothes. I'm clean. I take 5 showers a day, but I don't have the time or energy to keep up the house. If Erica comes in now, she'll see how far I've fallen. I can't let her see me like this. To make things worse, that voice in my head warned me. If you see her, she will die in a fire tonight. 7. I sat with my back against the door as she knocked. Finally, she walked away. Or at least I thought she did. After a few moments of silence, she said, "I want to help you, Anthony. Maybe she knew more than I thought. But I can't let her in. Not now. Not until I'm cured. I ignored her until she left, then sat on the floor for another 2 hours, thinking and unthinking a million horrible things. Monday, March 26. Noon. Saw Dr. Halprin for the first time since the plane crash. He'd been calling, but I ignored him. But after yesterday, I had to see him. He seemed to have gotten what I'd been telling him after the plane crash, but today, he looked me in the eyes and said, "It's all in your head." When I reminded him of how the plane fell from the sky, he suggested that perhaps I subconsciously picked up on the burning engine. And the woman in green, and the guy who fell on the way to the bus. Coincidences. I was pissed. Coincidences? All of them? No, impossible. No, not impossible, he said. Highly improbable, but not impossible. I conceded. How do you think these things are happening? He asked. Are you somehow predicting these events? Somehow glimpsing the future? Or are you creating these events in your mind and they come true? I don't know, I told him. I'm not sure how you identify a thought you created independently from a psychic vision. I mean, I could think I'm making these things up, but am in fact seeing the future and merely thinking it's from me. I don't know how it starts. But I know the only way to stop these things from happening is to unthink them. Dr. Halprin smiled like he was about to prove his genius. He pulled out a pad and pen and started to scribble, covering his words with his other hand. He tore the paper from the pad, then placed it face down on the desk. He did the same thing 4 more times. 5 notes lay face down on the desk. Okay, he said. I've got a way to determine if you're seeing the future or creating these events, or if it's all just in your head and just coincidence. I've written down 5 things that may happen to me. Pick one from the table and try to think it as if it will happen. No matter what it says, don't unthink it. I told him I didn't think it worked that way. He insisted, so I picked up one of the squares and read it. Stripper will come in and dance on my desk, the note said. I laughed. You wish, I said. Ah, you must have gotten the stripper one, he said, smiling. Then the thought bubbled up from the depths of, I don't know where. Dr. Halprin will die in 5 minutes. 7. What is it? He asked. I told him. That's not on the cards, he said. Because you're not the one who has this, I said. I began to unthink his fate, hoping he'd keep his mouth shut long enough for me to unthink the thought 7 times. After just 2, he spoke. No, he said. Let it happen. I want to prove to you that this is in your head. I shook my head. I couldn't let him die. 7. I tried to unthink it. He said, Trust me, Anthony. Do you want this to get better or not? You need to avoid the compulsion. Don't unthink it. Just wait and trust that things will be fine. Okay? I said, okay, and stopped trying to unthink his death sentence. Funny, as much as I tried not to unthink it, I found myself slipping into the thought, Dr. Halprin will not die. But he kept interrupting me. Finally, I relented. He was right. I needed a controlled environment where nothing was liable to go wrong. I had let go and see what happened. 4 minutes, Dr. Halprin stopped speaking and moving. His eyes stayed open and unblinking, as if staring at me in accusation. The paramedics said it looked like a massive heart attack. Now the only person who knows how bad I am is dead. God help me. Friday, March 30th. 11 p.m. I woke today just after noon to find Erica standing over the couch where I'd fallen asleep. Standing behind her was the apartment manager, an older, short, stout German woman named Goethe, who was far friendlier than she appeared. "I've been worried sick about you," Erica cried, falling to the couch and embracing me like a long-lost lover. She hugged me tight, but I could feel her eyes, just like Goethe's looking around the apartment, surveying the mess and judging me. "Are you okay?" she asked, pulling away. "You don't look good." "I'm fine," I snapped, annoyed. "Why are you here?" "You haven't returned any of my calls. I thought you might be." She didn't finish the thought. Thank God. She asked what was wrong. I'm not sure why, but I started crying. She thanked Goethe and said she had it from here. Goethe left, looking concerned. I'm not sure if the concern was for my welfare or my ability to pay rent, or that she might have to call a crime scene cleaner to scrub my suicide. All at once, the curtain had been pulled back, illuminating my weakness. But I couldn't tell Erica the truth. Nobody would believe the truth. The last person I tried to prove it to was dead. I had to say something else. So I told her I was depressed. Extremely depressed, and that my shrink died in front of me, and I didn't know what to do. It was all true, even if only skimmed the surface. As she sat with me, holding me, I found myself thinking horrible thoughts again. She's going to die in 3 minutes. 7. I had to get up, distance myself from her so I could unthink the thought without interruption. She followed me. "Where are you going?" "I have to go to the bathroom," I said, annoyed, moving quickly. I slammed the door to unthink the curse. She's not going to die. 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 And then she interrupted. "Honey, are you okay?" She called from the other side of the door. "Fuck. Give me a minute," I shouted. "I'm trying to shit." "She's not going to die. She's not going to die." "I'm sorry," she said from the other side of the door, interrupting me again. I started to panic. I wasn't keeping track, but the 3-minute mark had to be approaching. I needed a moment of silence. "She's not going to die. She's not going to die. I just want to make sure you're okay." "Jesus Christ," I whispered, barely holding my tongue. Can't a guy get a moment to shit? Time was running out, and I couldn't just tell her to shut up. Not without an argument. I had to get a moment of silence to finish unthinking. I opened the window and crawled out onto the ledge, immediately greeted by a gust of wind and the busy street below. I'm deathly afraid of heights, so I tried to avoid looking down any more than I had to, crawling out and far enough away from the window that I couldn't hear her anymore. "She's not going to die. She's not going to die." I began chanting in my head. I'm not sure if the scream interrupted me before or after I was through. All I know is that when I looked down, there was a woman on the sidewalk pointing up at me and yelling. "Don't jump!" another person called out. They thought I was going to jump. This wasn't good. To make matters worse, I was so distracted, I wasn't even sure how much time had passed, but surely it had been more than 3 minutes. I panicked, then returned to the bathroom window, calling for Erica. "Erica?" No answer. My heart sank, and I grabbed the doorknob and ripped the bathroom door open, sure I would find her dead on the floor. Instead, she was on the couch, staring at me. "Are you okay?" she asked. I sighed in relief. Either I had unthought her curse in time or it didn't take. But how long before something bad would happen to her? How long before I thought something I couldn't unthink? I decided to tell her the truth, to tell her everything, and so I did, at Francisco's. We went for dinner, and nobody was hit by a car. No planes fell from the sky. I barely thought about the millions of germs infesting every crevice of the chairs, table, doorknobs, cups, and silverware. It wasn't that I didn't think the thoughts. I must have thought a dozen. Different disasters ranging from a waitress dropping a tray full of meals to the chef running through the restaurant with a meat cleaver, hacking patrons until a beefy-looking cop shot him dead. Instead of holding the thoughts in my head like I'd done for so long, I said them out loud to Erica as they occurred. My goal was to show her that I wasn't imagining things, even though she never suggested I was. She was far too kind to judge me. I felt silly for not telling her more before. She was such a sweet soul to put up with a nutcase like me. I found myself starting to cry tears of joy and relief. Suddenly, another fate whispered in my mind. But this one was only for me, the oddest message yet. It's over now. Don't unthink another thing or it will return in spades. You're cured. Was this wishful thinking, or yet another bizarre rule added to a list of many? I didn't dare question the rules. I told Erica about the thought. I asked if she thought it was possible. Maybe you broke the chain, so to speak, by opening up to me. Maybe it only had power over you as long as you kept it secret. Maybe. It makes as much sense as anything else. The thoughts tested me. The waiter will fall on his knife. A car will come crashing through the restaurant. A man with an AK-47 will burst in through the front door, shooting at everyone. I ignored each and every one, cringing as they came. They sped their frequency, threatening everything from me to Erica to the entire state. I wasn't sure if this were the OCD or my own mind trying to psych myself out. In any case, I couldn't ignore the rules. There was comfort in that. By not giving in to the urge to unthink these curses, I was still playing by the rules. The rules had been clear. It's over now. Don't unthink another thing or it will return in spades. You're cured. After dinner, Erica and I went back to her place and made love. For the first time ever, I was able to ignore the thoughts running through my head. A fire will break out tonight. Planes will fly into the building. Erica will die in her sleep. You will both be murdered by a man in a ski mask. You will sleepwalk, grab a knife, and kill her. It wasn't easy, but I let them all go. I was playing by the rules after all. She got a call from her cousin a little bit ago, so I came in here, her living room, to add to this journal. I've never felt so much overwhelming joy. Never felt so free. She's going to die tonight, the voice warned again, trying to shake me. I ignored it. Just like I'm avoiding writing a 7 here. Saturday, March 31st. 11:50 a.m. Oh God. How? I obeyed the rules. She's dead. I woke up to her dead gaze staring at me, just like Dr. Halprin's, just like the woman in the green dress. Dead. I freaked out, called 911. Paramedics came, but there was nothing they could do. She'd been dead at least a few hours, they said. The police talked to me, but from what I could tell, they don't suspect me. She hadn't been injured or anything. From all outward appearances, she simply died, in her sleep, just as the voice had warned. Oh God, I thought I had followed the rules. Wednesday, April 4. If you're reading this, then Erica and Dr. Halprin were wrong. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Your loved ones are safe. For now, anyway. To think, that little voice inside my head almost told me to write. If you don't read this every day, everyone you know will die. How cruel that would have been. Like I said before, the rules are the rules. I don't make them up. I just abide by them. But now, I'm no longer certain which rules I should be playing by. Do I continue to unthink things as they pop up in my head, as I've always done? Or do I obey the last rule, that I must not unthink anything? Just let the thoughts go, and hope for the best. I've never felt so uncertain, and the uncertainty only floods my head with more thoughts. They won't stop. Predictions of death, disaster, asteroids crashing to Earth, mothers with cracked backs, and all. They just keep coming. And I don't know what to do, so I ignore them and hope that they're not coming true. God, I hope they're not, because my most recent thought involved me. It was, tonight you will jump off the roof of your building and die.